My name is Bettina Renz. I'm an associate professor in international security at the School of Politics and International Relations. My main interests and expertise are Russian security and defense policy, but I'm also interested in working more broadly in the area of strategic studies. So in line with that, my main teaching is I teach Russia in the World Today, that's contemporary Russian security and defense policy at the master's level. And I also have a module on air power and modern warfare at the final year undergraduate level. And I also teach across the curriculum of international relations and security on year 1 and 2. Of course, with recent developments in Russian foreign policy and Russia becoming much more assertive in international politics, of course, the annexation of Crimea took the world by surprise, and then also Russia's involvement in Syria from 2015 onwards. There has been a lot of interest in my research. I have written quite extensively about Russian military reforms, about transformation of the armed forces, Russian military doctrine and strategic thinking. And there has been interest in that not only academically, but also, of course, the military, the armed forces in the UK and elsewhere in Europe and beyond are quite interested in understanding what is going on in Russia today. So in addition to my work at the university, I've also had quite a lot of engagement, mostly making contributions by talks or giving lectures at various military establishments, the UK Defence Academy, but also in other European countries. And I'm always finding this kind of work quite interesting and rewarding, because it's important, of course, for our work to be relevant not only within the academy, although of course teaching and research is the most important thing we do, but also beyond that for society more broadly. At the moment, I'm at this very start of a new research project that I'm doing with my colleague, Dr. Sarah Whitmore at Oxford Brookes University. And this will not be about Russia, but it is going to be about the Ukrainian armed forces, where we're going to look at the transformation of the Ukrainian military. Of course, Ukraine as a country has faced issues quite different from Russia in many ways. Of course, the Ukrainian military also, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, needed to be reformed, and initially there was very much the perception that now small wars and insurgencies would be things that the Ukrainian armed forces would be engaged with. They have been part of the NATO Partnership for Peace program for a very long time, have contributed lots of troops to NATO operations over the last decades. But of course, when it came to the conflict with Russia, when Russia launched an offensive campaign on Ukraine, of course it emerged that the Ukrainian military was not prepared really to deal with this eventuality. At the moment, there are a lot of efforts underway also from the West and NATO to support Ukraine in its efforts to reform its armed forces. The questions we will be asking are, well, to what extent can the West really advise Ukraine in this respect? We are specifically going to look at Ukrainian thinking on the use of armed force, on military transformation, to see what really kind of military Ukraine wants and needs rather than ought to have from a Western perspective. And of course also an important issue to bear in mind is the Ukrainian political system and the extent to which this will influence the reforms and will make it possible to really transform the armed forces in line with what the ambitions are essentially.